Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, and the others took his ideas and, you might say, ran with them. Now notice as you look again at the body of Karl Marx, notice that his hand inside his jacket in a very strange position. Of course, that is a Masonic hand sign. That is a Masonic hand sign. He then was a Mason. And by the way, my research shows that he also was a high priest of the Church of Satan. Not the one founded by Anton LaVey in 1966 in California, but the long-standing Church of Satan. He was indeed a satanic priest. He was with a group called the League of Just Men, and he worked very close with a Jewish Zionist. He believed in a new world order for Zionism. He was a Jew. But of course, he was also a Jew, interestingly enough, who hated God. Now, we also have a picture of another, let's just call him, let me clear my throat when I call him that, another gentleman. Here is Vladimir Lenin. Lenin was also, it is now admitted, after the fall of the USSR and the breakup of all their republics under Mikhail Gorbachev, more recently and Boris Yeltsin, it's now admitted that this man, Vladimir Lenin, who founded communism within the USSR, he, Trotsky, Stalin, and others, that he was indeed a Jew. And he was married to a Jew, Miss Krupskaya. So Lenin was 100% a Jew. His mother was a Jew. This was a secret that the Russians kept from the people until just recently, and now the history books are now recording that he was Jewish, as was the number 2 man of the Soviet Communist Revolution, the Bolsheviks, that was Trotsky. He also was Jew. In fact, of the 5 founders, Stalin was not one of the 5 founders, but of the 5 founders of communism, the top 5 founders of communism in Russia, all 5 were indeed Jews, and all 5 were Freemasons. So we have the Masonic Jewish connection. Now, since we know that under communism, probably as many as, it is said, we have really no idea, 25 to 50 million Russians and from the other republics have been massacred, tortured, purged, sent to Gulag concentration camps. Now we can attribute this to those Jewish communist Bolsheviks, of course led by the ideology and the satanic writings of Karl Marx back in the 19th century. Now let's move on up to today. And I believe that the Jewish Masons who run Israel and to a great extent run the United States and Europe today, these men are no less bloodthirsty in my opinion. They just cover it up a lot better. You know, I received a newspaper called the Jerusalem Post, and I'd like to show you, if I could, an article. In fact, I've made a copy of it so it'd be a little bit easier to show here on television. This is an advertisement in the Jerusalem Post newspaper of November 1994. Let me try to hold that a little straight here for you. Notice the sign at the top is the Grand Lodge of the State of Israel logo. This ad says, the Grand Lodge of the State of Israel of ancient, free, and accepted Masons. And it's addressed to the Masons of Peace. Who are they? Well, the Honorable Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, His Majesty King Hussein of Jordan, and the Honorable Bill Clinton of the United States. It says, with warm fraternal congratulations on the signing of the peace agreement between Israel and Jordan. And it's signed by Ephraim Fuchs, President of the Israel Order of Masons. Here we have an admission. He's actually inviting them when they came over for the peace, for a talk with, there was a big Masonic gala extravaganza to be held, and he welcomed Rabin, Hussein, and Clinton. Now remember, Rabin, of course, was the Prime Minister of Israel, a Jew. But King Hussein of Jordan was a Muslim. And Bill Clinton of the United States was said to be a Christian. But they all were fraternal brothers and Masons and Illuminati, shouldn't we say? Well, today's front page put up by my good friend John Barella had this picture. And of course, this was in all of the newspapers, on television. There were the secret, the agreement that was signed that this talks about. These three Freemasons meeting. You see Prime Minister Rabin on this side here. Here's Prime Minister Rabin on this side. In the middle, President Clinton. And on the other side, we have the King of Jordan, Hussein. Now, fascinating as it is, Prime Minister Rabin was assassinated, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the King of Jordan, Hussein, died of cancer since this picture was taken just a few short years ago. Clinton, of course, still seems to be in his heyday, and his wife fully intends to run for president very soon. But in any case, here we have these three Masons. Now, I'd like you to look very carefully. You can't really maybe get a close-up, but I wish you could, because if you saw the position of their hands. Here I have another picture. It might be a little bit better from another newspaper. And if you look very close, you will see a Masonic handshake between Hussein and Rabin. A Masonic handshake. Oh yes, they are fraternal brothers, according to the Masonic organization. By the way, here they are. This is from U.S. News and World Report. And here they are signing the peace agreement. How happy they were. It seemed to flop and fall apart, though, because, as you know, the bloodshed and fighting went on and on. Here's a picture in memoriam to Prime Minister Rabin right after he was assassinated in 1995, which goes to show there is no honor among thieves. And some of the more rigid among the Jews are not happy with what even the Masons are doing. And it's highly believed in Israel today that the secret spy agency Shin Bet saw to the murder of Yitzhak Rabin. Now, let's move on a little bit more with our proofs about the Masons that run the lodge today. For example, I recently had a letter from a gentleman. He wanted to remind me that on television was the funeral of Prime Minister Rabin. And he says, "Dear Texe, I want you to know that I watched very carefully the funeral service of the Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, who took over the government after the murder of Rabin, and the Jordan King Hussein. And I noticed that at the service they called each other brother. After listening to your tapes and other materials, I know now that they meant that they were brother Masons." And yes, that's true, because in the lodge they each call themselves brother, just like the Baptist churches do. And I think that's sort of an interesting parallel, by the way, since many Baptist pastors are Masons, they call themselves brother. Call each other brother, I should say. Now, some years ago, a gentleman who was with a Christian television station in Washington, D.C., asked me, was I aware of the location of what appears to be possibly even a secret lodge in Jerusalem. And I was not fully aware of it at the time. Now I have been doing a lot of research on it. He said, "I'm going to send you the pictures that I took when I made one of my trips to Israel, and you'll find it very fascinating." He said, "I visited in a place that not many Christians go to, the Cave of Zedekiah." Now here is a picture showing the Cave of Zedekiah. It looks like a very forlorn and mysterious place up above this little bus here. But they took them inside this cave nevertheless. Now remember, Zedekiah was the sort of the bad king, if you'll remember, during the time of Jeremiah. And he did what he shouldn't have done and showed the riches of the kingdom of Israel to the Babylonians and caused the invasion of Israel. And Jeremiah prophesied against Zedekiah. So it would be appropriate if inside this cave, and by the way, here is the entrance to the cave. And let me give you a little closer shot of the entrance of the cave. Okay? You can actually visit this place now, although they will not let you into the Masonic lodge. Way deep inside the tunnels of this place, there is a Masonic lodge. They won't let you in that, of course. But they went inside this, and they didn't realize what they were going to find. By the way, here is some of the wording of what you will find inscribed there. They'll tell you all about Zedekiah's cave and so forth. Here's my friend, by the way, inside one of the tunnels, who went in and